and everything looks fine. Let's take a little quick check on everything, and everything looks fine. Though I did not wear an Andara today, but that's okay. Guess it wasn't necessary. All right, we're going to tackle a pretty big subject today, so we'll see how it goes. This one could be a lot of little nuances in it, so this one could take a little while, or maybe not. We'll see. See how much I can get with it. I will check the chat at the end. So if you do have a question, pop it in there and I will address it. I just normally don't do it. I used to make these a little more Q&A. I've kind of switched it to where now I do just pretty much a topic. Then I'll do a Q&A toward the middle or end if I have anything. I'm going to start doing just straight Q&As on my YouTube channel. So at least maybe once a month, I'll do just straight Q&A. So if nobody comes in to do a Q&A, I'll just use some stuff that people write in as far as on different DMs I'll get about different questions. I'll use those. So I am going to have a Q&A section over on YouTube. It's going to be more straight Q&A like the entire time. And if that works, I might eventually start doing it on here again, but we'll see. Okay. Fourth dimensional consciousness. Now, I did a video, I don't even know how long ago, about how you can have different consciousness. You can have different levels of consciousness in the same dimension, right? And how, even though both people might be in the fourth dimension, everyone's got a different consciousness and it still can't work. And we can get very frustrated for a long while, because we can't seem to get relationships to stick like they used to be able to stick, because everyone seems to be in a different place. Even if everyone's in the same dimension, they're still in a different place consciously. So I want to go with how that can happen and the different phases of fourth dimensional consciousness. Now, you'll see fourth dimensional consciousness described in a lot of different ways. To me, fourth dimensional consciousness is when you have one foot in third dimensional consciousness, which is human consciousness, and fifth dimensional consciousness, which is the gateway to higher consciousness. It is not the end of higher consciousness. It is not where everyone's striving to get to. It is just the beginning of it. It is, to me, fourth dimensional consciousness is the beginning, at least. A fourth dimensional consciousness is kind of where we're in our awakening. And then when we hit fifth dimensional, we start getting into our ascension. And those are two different separate processes that kind of start to overlap in the fourth dimension. So when we are in our fourth dimensional consciousness and we are in different phases of it, we kind of feel like we're always farther than we are. Because our ego is still involved very much in fourth dimensional consciousness. So technically, if someone defined fourth dimension, it would be 1 foot in both worlds. 1 foot in third dimensional, human world, 1 foot in fifth dimensional, which is the gateway to higher consciousness world. So how is that different? How does it break down in the middle of that? Now I'm going to go with how I came into fourth dimensional consciousness to show you how I progressed through it, because I think that'll be the easiest way for me to kind of bring it in. So, and an important thing to also we want to kind of remember is that your consciousness you can reach is always higher than your body consciousness, okay? Raising our body consciousness is what takes so much linear time, because our body has been so polluted with everything we've done to it, not just in this dimension, but in every dimension. Plus, our whole DNA is wired for human DNA. So we've so many distortions and programs built in to live in a human body that it takes a lot to deprogram, release those programs, clear those programs, and reprogram to higher dimensional consciousness and unlock that consciousness, which is really what we're doing. We're not so much like putting a different consciousness in, we're allowing enough of our soul to come in the body to unlock that consciousness. So that's kind of what we do, and that's what we are doing. And you'll see people that might start this in their 40s or 50s or sometimes even 80s or 90s. You'll see some people that start it and never really go all the way to sleep again. They'll come in, because children are always awake to some extent. And then as they go forward, they kind of go back to sleep, which is kind of our deal, we all agreed to do. But there are some kids that come in now and they really don't go back and sleep like we did. and they're kind of semi still more awake in their teens and 20s than a lot of us ever were. And it's just how things are progressing now on the planet. So they kind of don't have as far to go. It's kind of like when you look at, when you see, I'm going to take this very human for a minute, but it's going to just bring the point across. Like when you'll go to a doctor and they will say, you'll see something on TV or you'll see a testimonial and you go, well, that person cleared that and that person was 20 years old. So if you're 60 years old, it's not going to be the same as someone 20 years old. A human consciousness will put that in, it's because their age. It's not so much the age, it's the amount of degradation they've had a chance to do to their body. At age 20, they haven't had the amount of toxins in the body as you would probably have at about age 50 or 60. So the process of clearing that, just if we talk about those really simple terms, is going to be a little bit tougher because we've done more damage to our body. We've exposed ourselves to more human stuff. We have put more unclean water in our body. We've eaten more stuff that wasn't exactly the best for us. And look at what, I was born in the 70s, so what I ate in the 70s and 80s is a lot different than what a lot of kids come in and eat now, so there is a reason for that, but it's not the linear reason that, it's not that we can't do the same thing. It might take us sometimes a little bit longer because of the degradation we've done to our body to get our body's vibration to move. Okay, so just kind of keep that, you can kind of noodle that a little better or kind of really feel into that to get where I'm going there. So when we first are coming to the fourth dimension, your consciousness will start to hit the fourth dimension. But to me, if I am 100% honest with how I came into it, I cannot say the minute I entered the fourth dimension, I had a foot in the fifth dimension, and I understood what that meant, I understood what that felt like, and in the third dimension. I did not feel like that when I first started opening up to my awakening process, right? I can't say that's how I felt. I didn't even really know much about what the fifth dimension was even going to feel like at that point. I was still in a human consciousness. But because my human life had taken so many dips, and I just gone through a massive dip which kind of took off my awakening. And I'll say people kind of come through it two ways. Either you get everything you thought you wanted and it all crashes down around you. And to me, that happens kind of in your awakening and in your ascension. It was just different degrees of it for me. It happened to get me into my awakening and it happened to push me into my ascension. Because you're trying to go back even when you're semi-conscious at that point. And that's kind of what I will kind of sort of call fourth dimension. It's kind of semi-conscious. You're conscious, but you really can't hold it that long. But you're still conscious enough to know other things are going on. But we always think we're more conscious than we are. We're always going to feel like we're so far along. I'm so far along than we actually are. So, but I can't say, I even knew what that really was. I just was looking for something else. I just felt like nothing was really going the way I wanted it to go. I didn't really understand. I really didn't know what energy really was in a sense. I knew what it was. I had a science degree. I had a master's degree, so I knew what it was, but in the terms of the metaphysical, I can't say I really understood any of that stuff, right? So when I first started coming into that consciousness, my body was still very fairly rooted in the third dimension. And I'll always say, you're always going to be in between different dimensions. Like you'll do 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9. The higher, and you can even, your consciousness can go higher even than those. But to me, my set point consciousness would be in between the three. And the lowest one to me kind of was where my body was setting, right? Like right now, if my body is firmly in 8th dimensional consciousness and my body's vibration is in the 8th dimension, then I would be setting, for me, I'd be setting it around, for most of the time, at 10th dimensional consciousness, though I could go higher than that, but that would kind of be my set point, my walking around every day that I could hold. So I could come into the 4th dimensional consciousness. I might not be able to hold it for very long, but I could go be in there. But my body was still very much in the 3rd dimension, but I was getting an exposure to it. And that's to me how that 4th dimensional started opening up for me. I really can't say in the very, very, very beginning. And I was still trying to look for ways to improve my 3rd dimensional life, okay? My 3rd dimensional consciousness, my human life. my ego consciousness. I was still trying to fix that. I was still trying to make that work. So for me, the beginning of fourth dimension was going in and grabbing, all of these things that I thought would help. I got energy work done. I got crystals. I got pendulums. I got tarot cards. God, I can't even think of all this stuff. You start reading The Secret. I started reading all these books, and there's a higher part to this phase where we're also seeking the information. So it is very much an important part of our process, because we're also going in and seeking all this information that is expanding us more, expanding us more, expanding us more. So there's a reason we're doing it. There's a reason we go into the fourth dimension looking for something to help us with the third dimension consciousness, help us with those realities we built on that human consciousness. But then we kind of keep going. But when we first get in, it's really just playing around. What is this? What does this mean? I remember I got Reiki done for the first time, and I was like, oh, and that was probably the first time I really could feel that calm and peace when we started talking about fifth dimension, and we started talking about the feeling of fifth dimension. But probably the first time I kind of felt what that was supposed to feel like, and I could sort of start to touch that dimension. But in the very, very beginning of why I started it and why I was starting to get interested in that, I had not even experienced it yet. So in the beginning, you might find yourself coming into it to kind of grab something to then go back to human consciousness and fix that shit. Because this shit's all messed up over here. Nothing over here is helping. I'm going to try to go to some of this woo-woo stuff and this metaphysical stuff, and I'm going to bring it back over here. And then you get exposed to the fifth dimensional consciousness in the middle of all that. In the middle of all that, you'll start to feel that. And that's to me when you start rooting in a little bit more. And you starting to slowly pull your body out of third dimensional consciousness. And then you start going farther than that. You might start to find that, that's about when I started really getting really strong clairaudience, after I started going through a couple sessions of Reiki, because that will raise your body's vibration. So my body then started to get out of the third dimension more into the fourth dimension, where I could say, then I felt like I was kind of maybe rooted in both. I could really hit the fifth dimension, especially when and then I took Reiki courses, and I got certified in 3 different types of Reiki over that span of time. But I'm still pretty much still in my awakening phase at this point. I can't even say at this point I'm even starting my ascension phase. My body is still not in the fifth dimension. I'm still very much in the fourth dimension in all these phases. I became a Reiki teacher. I started doing some of that. And when I used to volunteer to do Reiki at a hospital. And that's when I could say, when I was in that energy and assisting other people, I could feel that fifth dimensional frequency. So that was when I could say, okay, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle. And we'll start to feel it. Our body starts to get in a fourth dimensional phase. Our body starts to move up to that phase. But it can take years. I mean, I'm going to say from the beginning of 2013 till sometime middle of 2015, 16, I'm still in fourth dimension. Okay? Still very much rooted in fourth dimension. Though I was probably a 3 or 4 time Reiki master at that point. Now, I still had a very linear job and a very human job at that point still, which would last for years still to come. I was very much into tarot. I very much had very strong clairaudience. So if you don't know what that term means, it just means I would hear energy. I didn't have to. Some people, when they would do Reiki opens up your channel in a sense. It opens you up to what you can hear. The veils start to come down, and that's a lot of what fourth dimensional was too. It's the veils coming down. You start to get more into telepathy, even though I think it's a human thing, and we try to use it to manipulate. And once again, still take shit back to human dimensions and try to make them work with all this stuff. You start to notice synchronicities. Fourth dimension to me was big synchronicities. I can't say they don't happen later, but in the fourth dimensional, we're shocked when that shit starts to happen, right? We're shocked when we're thinking about a person and then they call us. We're shocked when we think about a movie and we turn on the TV and hey, that movie's on. we start to see how we are creating things. But to us in the beginning, and to me, it was minor things I'm creating. I'm not creating the big stuff I want to create, but I noticed I was moving the needle a little bit. And I will say you'll see more of those things when you're first in that fourth dimensional, when you start kind of getting a little more rooted in, when you start to really start believing, and you start to shift your beliefs toward this stuff and start shifting it out of human consciousness, but you still are in the systems of human consciousness. That's when we say like feed in both worlds. I still believed in the human systems, though my consciousness was now getting to where my consciousness might be hitting the fifth dimension a lot. I couldn't really hold it, but it was still there. I was more open to that. I was still being able to be in that energy, even though I couldn't hold it and live my day by it. I was deep into meditation where I could hit that energy. Channeling, big time in the fourth dimension. Even though we're just channeling ourselves, that's all we can channel is ourselves. So I was channeling then, and you still feel, at that point I feel stuff kind of coming down and the information kind of coming down. That's why people sometimes will call it downloads. It was a couple more years before that would shift to where now everything was inside out, and everything was inside of me and nothing was above me anymore in that sense. So it took a few more years to even get there. But when I was in that space, I just remember not 100% knowing where I was, in a sense, and like I said, thinking you're a lot farther than you are. And I remember I met a lot of, spirituality is a big one in the fourth dimension, more so to me when we get toward when our body starts getting there, when we start getting because our body vibration originally is going to set in the 300s. That's what your DNA is set up to do. That is how the human body gets constructed. That is what it's set up to do. And if you don't have a lot of experience with the frequencies of the body, you can look at the different emotional frequencies. That's what I always say, that when you're in a third dimensional consciousness and your human body is setting still at that consciousness and at that frequency, you can't really hold happiness. You can touch on it here and there, but you can't hold it because the frequency is too high. I think happiness is in the 5s and the human body is still in the 3s. And when you get to the 4s, it's going to be this is going to be kind of logical, which most things aren't, but this is kind of logical. When you get to the fourth dimension, now you're getting your body into the 4s. Fifth dimension, your body's into the 5s. When you listen to different frequencies, you see these frequencies on YouTube all the time. 6 is 6th dimension. If it starts with a 7, it's the 7th dimension. If it starts with a 5, it's the 5th dimension. I don't listen to anything now that's not like 11 or higher, because everything else is now old to me. Just like Reiki energy became old to me. Probably around toward the end of the fourth dimension for me, it became a lower frequency than I was. Even Karuna, which is a higher than Usui Reiki, became too low for me. So there are different levels of energy work people will do. And then I think I did do Violet Flame. I can't remember now. I can't remember any of it now. I did do Violet Flame, and that was even higher than Karuna. So when we're talking about different Reiki principles. So all through that phase, my eyes started getting a lot lighter toward the end of the fourth dimensional phase. But there becomes a point where, okay, so we get our body into the fourth dimension, which means we've raised our body, we've exposed ourselves long enough to all this higher consciousness stuff, whether it be podcasts, whether it be courses we take, whether it be crystals we use, whether it be tarot cards, whether we get tarot readings, whether we're getting energy work done, whether we're getting attuned to different energy, whether we're doing the work ourselves. All these different things will get our body's vibration to the fourth dimension. We'll start clearing. Awakening is a big clearing, because some people will call it kind of when our karmic stuff comes back and everything kind of comes back at one time. So you kind of have this big, some people will call it beginning. It's kind of the beginning of clearing your human Akash. Everything we've done up to that point of our awakening comes back and starts slapping us again and again and again and again and again, because everything we've done, all that karma we've created starts coming back, and it comes back really quick and all at one time. So it feels like everything is just collapsing on top. And then we'll get to different parts when we get into Ascension, where we're clearing a whole Akash and across all our dimensions. So once we get to that awakening phase, and we've gone through that for a couple years, and in that time I said a lot in that fourth dimensional phase where my body was then at that point rooted in fourth dimension, where I could touch and hold fifth dimensional consciousness. I would still say it was not my set point. I would still also had a foot in both worlds, but at that point, I didn't really so much believe in the human systems anymore. I was just still participating in them because, one, I had not mustered up the courage to leave them. It was still really not my time to. My body vibration was too low, because until we get our body vibration up to fifth dimensional vibration, to me, not much starts to shift. And like I say, consciousness, body frequency, different. Your consciousness will be higher than your body will set. So once you start moving toward the end of fourth dimension, you start getting to that end of that consciousness, your body vibration is in the fourth. You still might have some systems supporting you in the third, but your body's in the fourth. Your consciousness could be in the sixth. You could be able to hit the sixth, but your body's still setting in the fourth dimension. You're kind of still teetering both worlds in a lot of different ways. And when I started getting to the end, and I also think, to me, the end of my awakening ended with me kind of leaving the fourth dimension. My eyes got a lot lighter. My voice got a lot stickier, sweet in a sense, because when we get into that fifth dimensional consciousness, our voice gets, I don't even know how to explain it. You know when anyone's in the fifth dimension with their body, because their voice gets very sing-songy. It's this foo-foo-y sweetness to it. Everything is love. Everything is beautiful. Everything is rainbows, puppies, and kittens. And that is just the feeling of that dimension. And when you start to bring your body into that. Cats. I didn't want to know when you knocked over. I'll leave that for later. When we start bringing our body dimension into that, we start having to then make bigger shifts. Fifth dimensional consciousness, when your body comes into fifth dimension, we still have not had to do anything. It's a floaty phase, and you can kind of play around, and you still kind of can be supported by fourth dimensional stuff. It's not a phase where you're actually doing anything. There's no boots on the ground. There's no having to implement anything. You're just getting used to the frequency, used to the energy, used to holding it, you know? And I'll still say, no matter what consciousness you get to, until you really get through 12th dimensional consciousness and oversoul consciousness, till you get to those phases, my guess is I haven't gotten to those phases. So when you get to those phases, I would imagine you probably, like right now I can hold a certain level of consciousness all the time. But back then, even in fifth dimensional, I can't say I could hold it all the time. You know, even when my body was setting there, I still go unconscious, especially when you start working through twin flame stuff. Because you'll still be working through a lot of programming, even once you're out of the fourth dimension. Anyone who says you work through all that shit in the fourth dimension, that's just because that's where they're working through a lot of their awakening stuff, which seems a lot more severe because it all happens at one time. And they haven't hit their ascension yet. Because once you hit your ascension part, where your body is, to me, that started for me when I completely let my body move into the fifth dimension. And I started having more boots in the ground. Boots in the ground is more sixth dimension, when your body gets into the sixth dimension, when you have to start actually implementing the stuff into your life. But still in the fifth dimension, you're still floating around. Everything's beautiful. People still feel that way because at that point you can take. Well, let me. The illusion is that you've now taken all this beautiful energy and enhanced your human life. That's the illusion. That's what our human, because we haven't opened up higher mind consciousness yet. That comes, you know, in later iterations of our ascension process, different dimensions. We still feel, I mean, you're just living from your heart. Your heart is open. You know, you see the beauty in everything. So you see the beauty. You're not so much seeing the beauty in the human world. You're seeing a hybrid world in a sense. You're seeing your own world. But because we can't really segregate the two at that point, we think we've enhanced the human world. And we really haven't done that. We just open up to a different one. But because we 100% can't grasp that yet, we just feel like we've finally done it. You know, I've finally improved my human life with all this stuff. But that's a very fleeting feeling, and eventually that illusion crumbles too, because we try to enter back in to different human timelines. You know, we try to go back, and you'll find now our body, you know, your body's out of those dimensions when your body gets will physically reject you going back into them. You know, you won't feel good. You'll start having a lot of physical symptoms. You know, your body won't take it. Your body will say, no, we're not going back there anymore. I won't allow you to take me back there anymore. I won't allow you to let me do that. We're not going there. Yeah, you can visit. Yeah, you can kind of pop in and review for Akash clearing or some remembrances sometimes to clear, which is really just reminiscing to clear more of your Akash. But you can't stay there, and that's when things get more real. And that's when we start getting more into the fifth dimension, into the sixth dimension, where we have to start, sixth dimensions, boots on the ground, we have to start doing stuff. We have to start rearranging stuff. And while my consciousness will be there, and I'll start having to do stuff, my fifth dimensional body will go but so far. And you'll see that in all the dimensions, beginning of the fourth, into the fourth. Your body needs more to support it. You'll start maybe rearranging your house. And your house will look one way when you begin the fourth dimension of consciousness. And by the time you've embodied fourth dimension, you're getting into fifth dimension, your house is going to look totally different. You've remodeled it. You've moved out all the stuff. You've cleared out all the clutter because you can't take all that stuff. You can feel all the clutter in your field. You have to get it out of there so your body can continue to expand. To me, once my body was in the fifth dimension completely, I was then able to, I had to move my body to a different location. The human place I had lived for 10 years, would not support me any longer. I could, polish it up, refurnish it a little bit and move some clutter out, but there came a time when I couldn't keep it. And this is when we start having a lot of a lot of times our financial world will start to collapse at these points, to push us out, to kind of push us out of the nest, to get us fully into what they would call walking into the fifth dimension, where you are leaving behind human jobs. I'm going to just call them human jobs because of the beliefs and the structures they support. Any job can be a higher consciousness job, but you will find after a while, you just don't believe the mission anymore of it because it's all bullshit. So it's hard to go in and, let's say, be a marketing director for a company when that's just bullshit, and what are we marketing to? It's like this is not a natural way I feel. This is a normal for human, but not natural for me anymore. So all that starts to get upside down. You start to have different realities come in, but they don't look like how you thought because we have everything. This reality. What do those look like? We can't even fathom those at that point. That's when we start feeling that expectations or disappointments are. We go through so many different ebbs and flows of this type of thing. So for me, ascension started when your body vibration hits the fifth dimension. I'll tell you, you won't be able to eat meat anymore. That'll be done. I won't say sometimes you might not feel the need to eat it for some process your body's trying to do, but for me, by the time my body got there, I couldn't eat it anymore. There's just certain things I couldn't do anymore. I still had a lot of physical strength, but I have noticed as things have gone on the last so many years, as you get in your body into higher dimensional frequencies, your body frequency into those frequencies, that my physical strength is not probably where it used to be, but I can still do the physical stuff because a lot of times I'm the only person in the reality that is here to do that physical stuff, either because we're by ourselves for a long period of time and then we have to live with other people for a while because we have to be able to live with people at a different consciousness because that's a whole different part of the process we have to learn to do and still hold our consciousness. But when you're first out of the fourth, beginning of the fourth, into the fourth, you'll start to really see how much you've shifted and changed. And how long this can take, so, and you can start to see where other people are. Like I said, fifth dimension is, you can point that stuff out. It's so easy to see it. And if you're not there, you have no desire to listen to it. Now, if you're in that dimension with your consciousness, it's glorious because that's a frequency you want to hear. But if you're not, you don't want to hear that because it's too much. because you also know that they're only seeing a facet, they haven't had to really rearrange anything yet. It's easy to say everything is beautiful when you haven't had to do anything yet. You're just kind of floating around like a kid, like a kid playing in a new dimension. That's basically what it is. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that really marked my beginning of fourth dimension toward the end of fourth dimension. Like for me, Ascension started when around 2016, by 2016. So we're talking, I was about probably 3 years, beginning of fourth dimension to where I got out of fourth dimension. And even once I was in fifth dimension with my body, I still had a lot of ego stuff going on. I still had a lot of clearing to do. Even 6, 7, 8, and 9, you're still clearing a lot of stuff out of the body. We're getting our frequency higher and higher. And that's when we start getting into the really deeper and deeper stuff. And we feel like we repeat years. I feel like, oh God, I feel like I was where I was, 3 or 4 years ago. We'll go through our twin experiences. And when you will go through those in your human consciousness, and I remember I went through one where I was semi-conscious, but then I went through one where I was completely conscious. And they're just totally different every time, but it's to get to more of it. It's to get to a deeper level of the program. We just kind of keep leveling up. And for us to level up, we're going deeper in to clear more stuff out, I'm trying to think. I'll check my chat to see if I have anything there, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Let me see. Okay. I think that I can't think of anything else I want to say. What science degree do I have? I have an environmental science degree, and I had a master's in business. So I had a bachelor's of science in environmental science, and I have a master's in business. I had both of those. Now, that is actually, I'm kind of glad that came up. That's an interesting point. That's kind of something I would kind of mention. We will be there are parts of fourth dimension when your body and consciousness are there. When you're in the fifth dimension with your body too, we start to feel kind of dejected that we spend so much time in the fifth dimension and all this stuff. Everything you did in the fourth dimension, in the third dimension, in your human consciousness, every degree you got, every job you did, they all come back to help you in the higher dimensional realities. Don't ever think you wasted your time. Don't ever think you wasted your time getting stuff you did not need. Everything I did, every skill I got, everything I did enables me to do what I need to do now in higher consciousness realities. Like I designed my own website. I had someone show me how to do some stuff, and then because I did have a science background, I could kind of figure the rest of it out. All of my technical stuff I do myself. I can figure it out. All the finance stuff I do it myself because I did it for so long in different businesses that I worked for. I worked for just about everybody over the years. So, and let's say if you had a marketing degree, you're going to use them in a purer form. It's just like your sun sign. The sun sign you're born into is not a mistake. And a lot of people kind of start throwing out astrology when they get to certain parts of Ascension because all the planets are inside of you. And once you embody in the consciousness of that planet, like for Mercury retrograde, once you learn to communicate clearly and communicate honestly, Mercury retrograde will not bother you anymore because you've embodied in that planet. You'll find the same thing for your sun sign. For a while, in our human consciousness, fourth dimensional consciousness, that's another big one. You'll get really into numerology. You could get into human design. You can get into astrology. You'll get into full moons. You'll get into all that stuff. Because once again, we're trying to figure everything out. So you get into a lot of that stuff. And that's all very fourth dimensional stuff. And that does not mean you stop paying attention to it. It all kind of flips and starts to flip and turn. When you get into, your body gets into higher consciousness after the fourth dimension, you start to look at it differently. You embody in the energies and you might feel the shifts of different energy when the moon is full. I used to know when the moon was full, when the moon was new, all that stuff. Now I don't really know unless I look up at the sky. In a sense. I mean, I'll know inside, but I don't plan anything around it. Eclipses become a little different in the sense they're not as shocking because we don't let things get there. Humans needed the eclipses to move shit out because as human consciousness, we never moved anything out. Now we move everything out. Now we shift everything out as quickly as we can. We don't procrastinate. Higher consciousness does not procrastinate. Your higher aspects do not procrastinate. I can say that you really don't start getting into embody in your higher aspects until you get into fifth dimension and above. To me, that was not something I was doing in fourth dimension. I might have been touching on angel energy here and there, especially when I would do Reiki and volunteer or just do it in general for people. Now, I don't do that anymore. I will now do my own version of energy work because I can hit higher consciousness. I can hit higher energies and bring them forth than someone doing Reiki. Or Reiki to me is lower. It's just a lower frequency. At the time, it was not for me. So it also helped me purify my body and get my body vibration up because I was running those energies all the time. And a lot of people who do get attuned to Reiki will do that. You know, I still, when I sleep, and I used to do this, I've done it for years. I put a hand on my heart and a hand on my stomach. And I'll still do that, even though I don't run those frequencies anymore because now they're lower than my current frequency I set at. So it would be going, it does me nothing to go run lower frequencies. We won't do that. Our quest is to always get higher and higher. So all of those things that are so pivotal in those dimensions, they will come back. For a while, you might just completely discount them and forget about them, and then they'll come back in a different way. You know, you'll get more into when you start getting into your galactic aspects and embodying in those aspects and the galactic knowledge that comes from the higher mind consciousness. But we can't get to higher mind till we get to higher heart, till we open up our heart in general. When we start getting to a lot of those other phases, a lot of this stuff comes back in, but never think you wasted your time on anything you did. I promise you did not. You'll find it all kind of come back in, and you will be able to, and even the situation you lived in, like I've lived by myself pretty much majority of since I graduated from college, my adult life, I've lived alone. So having to be the only one in your reality doing anything, that wasn't that tough for me because that's all I've done. Living with other people again, that was tougher for me when I got to that phase last year, because that was a phase I had to go through. You know, there were different reasons for it, a lot of different reasons for it. Clearing ancestral karma was one of them, but also just to be able to be with people in a different consciousness. It's easier to hold your consciousness when you're the only one there. That's why for a while on this journey, you'll be the only one there because you can hold your consciousness. When you are in a different phase with that, you're going to find that once you've kind of mastered being able to hold yourself when it's just you, then you're going to be shown, okay, now you got to be around other people. Can you still hold it? Will you dip back in? You know, and you're also have an agreement with those people to raise their consciousness also. So there's so many different phases, pieces, parts to this in fourth dimension. And I just mentioned that one. I feel like that's the one a lot of humanity's going toward. It's one where it's such a vast dimension. So many things happen in the fourth dimension. And you'll end that, like I said, I can pretty much say I was there for a super duper long time. You know, like, and I was working hard to get, and I was doing light activations every day. I was listening to so much higher consciousness material, the highest consciousness stuff I could find. I was big and still am. I would always listen to Lisa Transcendence Brown and all of her stuff. And she was way beyond and still is where anybody is. I mean, I was listening to this stuff constantly. And it still took me from beginning of 2013. I'll say around March, I guess, probably is when things really got, the rug got pulled out from under me till I would say end of 15. So 3 years, squarely, from the beginning of going into the fourth dimension until where I started exiting out. And then even 2 or 3 years after that, to where the place I lived got to where I couldn't stay there anymore. I had to go to a different space. I had to go to a space that would support my body. So you will feel the need eventually to move. And that's not something people like to hear. Certain things people don't like to hear. The sex thing is not one people really like to hear. And having to move. Eventually, your job will get to where it won't really fit anymore. There's a couple things that people, when they're in different parts of this journey, don't really want to hear about those things. So, I think that's about everything I want to talk about in the fourth dimension. I think that's about can't think of anything else, but I'm really glad that, who said that? Callie234. I do appreciate that, that question, because it did lead to some other stuff, which it always does. Okay, so I think I'm going to end it there. And I will talk to everyone very soon. I don't think I'll be live next week. I've done a couple lives. I did a live on Instagram yesterday. I'm doing a live on Twitch today. I'm doing a live on YouTube tomorrow. So, okay. I think that's it.